Episode 2, What Doesn't Exist. The morning was quiet, not tense, not emotional, just controlled. Hanuel woke up slowly, staring at the unfamiliar ceiling. For a few seconds, nothing registered. Then everything did. The wedding. The room. The woman. Marriage. She sat up, pushing her hair back, expression calm, not shocked anymore, just aware. Across the room, Lee Haram was already dressed. Black suit, clean lines, perfect posture, like the night before had been nothing more than an appointment. Hanuel studied her briefly, then looked away. "What's the plan?" she asked. No hesitation, no emotion in it. Haram adjusted her cuff. At the university, this doesn't exist. Clear. Final. Hanuel nodded once. Okay. And that was the agreement. They left together, but not as a pair. The moment they stepped outside, distance formed naturally. Not forced, not awkward, just understood. By the time they reached campus, they weren't walking together anymore. Haram moved ahead. Kenyul slowed slightly, blending into the crowd. Two separate people, like they had never met. The university felt exactly the same. That was the strange part. Nothing had changed for anyone else. Students laughed, argued, rushed to class. Normal. Kenyul adjusted her bag on her shoulder and walked in without looking. Toward the front building. She didn't need to. She already knew where Haram would be. The lecture hall filled gradually. Hanuel took her usual seat in the back. Same place. Same view. Different meaning. Lee Haram entered precisely on time. The room settled instantly. "Open your notes," she said, placing her file down. No hesitation, no distraction. Nothing in her expression hinted at anything beyond routine. If someone had told Hanuel yesterday that this woman would be her wife, she wouldn't have believed it. Even now, it didn't fully register. Assumption weakens credibility. Haram wrote on the board, "Sharp, controlled. Without evidence, your argument holds no weight." Same lecture style, same tone, unchanged. Hanuel listened. Not watching her, not avoiding her, just listening. That was the safest option. "Miss Gung." Hanuel looked up immediately. "Your interpretation of the case." No shift in tone, no recognition, just expectation. Kenyul answered. Clear, structured, focused, no challenge, no attitude, just correct. A brief pause. Haram looked at her a second longer than necessary. Acceptable. Then moved on. No one noticed anything, and that was exactly the point. After class, students gathered near the front. Questions, clarifications, normal interactions. Kenyul didn't join. She packed her things quietly and left. Not avoiding, just maintaining. Haram noticed. Of course she did. But she didn't call her back. She couldn't. The hallway was crowded. Kenyul walked through it easily, her expression neutral. Two girls nearby were talking. Did you understand her last point? She's so strict. Kenyul almost smiled faintly. They had no idea. That evening, the apartment was quiet again. Hanuel stepped inside first. She didn't hesitate this time, didn't look unsure. She placed her bag down, took in the space like it belonged to her now. Because it did. Haram entered moments later. The door closed softly behind her. Silence settled. "You handled today well," Haram said. Kenyul glanced at her briefly. "It's not difficult." A pause. "You said it doesn't exist." Haram nodded. "It doesn't. At least, not there." They moved around each other naturally. No tension, no forced distance. Just coexistence. Later that night, Kenyul sat on the couch, scrolling through her phone. The TV was on, volume low. Background noise. Nothing important. Haram stood by the window, reading something on her tablet. Same room, separate spaces. "You always work this late?" Hanuel asked casually. "Yes." "By choice?" "Yes." A pause. Hanuel nodded slightly. "Makes sense." She didn't ask anything else. That was new. Another day. Same routine. At the university. They were nothing. Professor. Student. That's all. But awareness built quietly. One afternoon, Kenuel entered the lecture hall early, almost empty. She took her seat, pulling out her notebook. A few minutes later, Haram walked in. She paused briefly when she noticed Hanuel already there, just for a second, then continued like normal. That second didn't go unnoticed. The lecture started. Smooth, controlled, uninterrupted. Miss Gung. Kenuel looked up again. Yes, Professor. The word felt deliberate this time. Haram held her gaze. Then continued the discussion like nothing had happened, but something had. Laughter class. Miss Jung, stay. A few students glanced over. Nothing unusual. The room emptied. Door closed.
Silence.
Hanuel stood across from the desk. Same distance. Same posture. Your recent work, Haram said, is more precise. Noted, Hanuel replied. A pause. That's all?
Yes.
Silence stretched. Longer than necessary. Hanuel broke it. You're consistent. Haram's eyes lifted slightly.
That's
expected. Hanuel nodded, then added quietly. Not everyone is. A beat. Something in the air shifted. Haram leaned back slightly. You should focus on your work, she said.
I am.
Another pause. Hanuel turned to leave. Kenuel.
She stopped.
That name, again, in the wrong place. Haram's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. Miss Gung. Correction. Immediate. Kenuel didn't turn. You'll get got if you slip like that, she said calmly. No accusation, just fact. Then she left. That night, neither of them mentioned it, but the silence felt different. Because hiding something completely doesn't make it disappear. It sharpens it, makes every detail clearer, every pause heavier, every moment more deliberate. Late at night, Kenuel walked into the kitchen, barefoot, quiet. Haram was already there, leaning against the counter, reading. They looked at each other. Just for a second. You're awake, Haram said. So are you. A pause. Neither moved. Then Kenuel reached for a glass,
Filled it with water.
took a sip. Calm, unbothered. You're good at separating things, she said. Haram watched her. It's necessary. Maybe. Kenuel set the glass down. Or maybe it's just easier for you. A beat. Haram didn't answer. Kenuel didn't wait for one. Good night. She walked past her. But this time, Haram didn't move immediately. And that was new. Because no matter how perfectly they hid it, no matter how carefully they controlled it, it was there, quiet, unspoken, but real. Next day, the apartment was quiet, except for the sound of the coffee machine. Kenuel walked into the kitchen slowly, still half asleep. Oversized cream sweater slipping off one shoulder, Haram stood by the counter in dark slacks and a fitted black shirt, reading something on her tablet. You're awake earlier again, Haram said calmly. Kenuel opened the fridge. You keep saying that like it's shocking. It is statistically unusual. Kenuel looked over her shoulder. You really talk like this naturally. I do. Hanuel noticed plates already sitting on the counter. Food. Actual breakfast. She blinked once. You made breakfast? You said skipping meals was inefficient. A pause. Then Kenuel smiled faintly. So you listened. Haram took a sip of coffee. I listened to useful things. Something warm settled quietly in Hanuel's chest. The morning air was cold. Students crowded the sidewalks around campus. Normally, Harev and Hanuel separated almost immediately after leaving the apartment. Today, they didn't that. They walked beside each other quietly, not speaking,
But not pulling away either.
At the university gate, Kenuel slowed slightly. The distance formed again naturally. But both noticed the moment it happened. Kenuel. Minji appeared dramatically out of nowhere and immediately linked arms with her. You disappeared yesterday. I went home. That's suspiciously vague. Yuna walked beside them, unimpressed. She says that because she thinks your married life is secretly exciting. Hanuel nearly stumbled. What? Minji grinned. You'd tell me if you were secretly in love, right? Why are you like this? Because I care. At the end of the hallway, Harem stood speaking with another professor. Her eyes shifted briefly toward the group, toward Minji hanging on to Hanuel's arm, toward Hanuel laughing quietly, then away again.
The room settled immediately when Harem entered. Open your notes. Same calm voice. Same perfect posture. But today, her attention kept drifting. Toward the back row, toward Minji whispering too close to Hanuel, toward Hanuel smiling again. Miss Jung. Hanuel looked up immediately. Yes, Professor. Explain the flaw in the argument. Hanuel answered perfectly. But Harem didn't respond immediately. Instead, focus. The word came out sharper than intended. The room went quiet. Even Minji noticed. Hanuel blinked slightly. I am focused. A long pause. Then Harem turned back to the board. Continue. The second class ended. Minji leaned dramatically onto Hanuel's shoulder. Coffee. You're clingy. And yet you tolerate me. At the front of the room, a student asked Haram a question, but her eyes shifted toward the back again, toward Minji touching Hanuel's arm casually while laughing. Something unpleasant tightened quietly in her chest. You misunderstood the entire case, Haram told the student flatly. The poor student froze. Sorry? Read it again. Meanwhile, Yuna whispered. Professor Lee feels dangerous today. Hanuel packed her bag faster than usual. Hanuel arrived home first and collapsed onto the couch. 10 minutes later, Haram entered. She removed her coat carefully, then paused. My family is visiting tomorrow. Silence.
Here?
Yes. Why? They want to see the apartment. A pause. And us. That sounded significantly worse. The apartment became a disaster zone of cleaning. Hanuel stood on the couch fixing a picture frame while Haram reorganized bookshelves. You already cleaned this. It needed adjustment. No, you need therapy. Haram ignored her. Hanuel jumped down from the couch and nearly slipped. Haram reacted instantly, a hand against her waist, steadying her. Silence. Very close. Too close. Hanuel froze. Haram's hand stayed there 1 second longer than necessary before disappearing. Be careful. Right. Neither mentioned it afterward. The doorbell rang exactly at 1 p.m. Of course it did. Haram opened the door. Her mother entered first, elegant and observant. Her father followed, calm but intimidating. Then Sora burst in behind them energetically. She stopped immediately after seeing Hanuel. Oh my god. Sora, Haram warned. She's really pretty. Hanuel blinked. Thank you? Meanwhile, Haram's mother quietly noticed everything. The second coffee mug, the blanket on the couch, the way Hanuel moved naturally around the apartment, like she belonged there. Tea was served. Conversation started formally. Too formally. So how did you meet? Sora asked immediately. At the university, Haram answered smoothly. Sora gasped dramatically. That's so romantic. It wasn't romantic, Haram replied. Suspicious answer. Hanuel tried not to laugh. Failed slightly. Haram noticed immediately, and unexpectedly, wanted to hear it again.
Hanuel helped clean dishes despite protests. You're a guest, Harem's mother said. I live here too, Hanuel answered automatically. Silence. Then Harem's mother smiled slightly. I can tell. Hanuel realized what she said too late. Across the kitchen, Harem noticed her embarrassment, and something softened quietly inside her chest again. Dinner somehow became loud, mostly because of Sora. Harem used to color code vacation schedules. That was efficient. She corrected restaurant menus. They were wrong. Daniel laughed properly this time. Real laughter, bright, warm. Harem looked at her too long again, because suddenly she realized she liked making Hanyul laugh far too much. Rain hammered against the windows heavily. Sora looked outside dramatically. We're definitely staying the night. Their father agreed immediately, which meant 1 room, 1 bed. Hanyul closed her eyes briefly. Silence. Your family assumes a lot. They're married adults, Haram replied calmly. This is normal to them. That somehow makes it worse. For the first time all evening, Haram almost smiled. Small. Real. And Hanyul stared a second too long. The bedroom suddenly felt too small. Hanyul changed in the bathroom first. When she returned wearing loose sleep clothes, Haram looked up briefly, then immediately away. Which was strange, because Haram never looked away first. Hanyul noticed. You can use the bathroom. Right. Haram disappeared inside. Hanyul sat on the edge of the bed trying not to think about sharing it, which made it impossible not to think about. They laid on opposite sides of the bed, far apart, like the distance mattered. Rain hit softly against the windows. Neither slept. You're quieter tonight, Hanyul murmured. So are you. Your family is exhausting. They liked you. That's dangerous. Why? Because this isn't supposed to become real. But Hanyul didn't say it. I don't know. Thunder echoed softly outside. Hanyul shifted slightly in her sleep. Closer. Not touching, but close enough to feel warmth now. Presence. Breathing. Haram noticed immediately, but she didn't move away. You smiled a lot tonight, Hanyul said sleepily. Did I? Yes. A pause. You laughed too. Hanyul turned slightly toward her. That's different. How? You don't laugh often. Silence. Then quietly. Maybe you're easier to talk to than most people. The room went still, because that sounded dangerously honest. Hanyul stared at her in the dark. That almost sounded sincere. It was too immediate, too real. Something shifted again, deeper at this time.
Later that night, after the lights were dimmed, Hanyul's phone buzzed softly against the nightstand. Minji? Video call. Hanyul sighed quietly before answering. Immediately. Hani Yoel.
Hanyul winced.
You're loud. And you vanished after class. I went home. That answer tells me nothing. Hanyul shifted slightly against the pillows. In the background, Haram sat at the desk near the window, reading through documents under the soft lamplight, far enough away to stay outside the camera frame, close enough to hear everything. You still owe me coffee, Minji complained dramatically. You say that every day, because friendship requires financial support. Hanyul almost smiled. You're unbelievable, uncharming, debatable. Minji narrowed her eyes suspiciously. Why do you look weirdly relaxed today? I'm tired. No, it's something else. There's no something else. Minji leaned closer to the camera dramatically. You know, if you ever secretly fall in love, I expect to be informed first. Hanyul nearly choked. What? I'm serious. You read too many dramas, and you avoid questions. At the desk, Harem's grip tightened slightly around her pen, barely noticeable, but noticeable to herself, because Hanyul was smiling again, softly, naturally, the kind of smile Haram rarely saw, and apparently Minji received it easily. That irritated her far more than it should have. Anyway, Minji continued, next time we're getting coffee after class and you're not escaping. We'll see. No, we won't see. You're coming. Hanyul laughed quietly under her breath, and the sound made Haram look up immediately, a little too quickly.
Minji
Kept talking for another few minutes before finally ending the call dramatically. Good night, emotionally unavailable woman. Good night, problem. The screen went dark. Silence returned. Kenyul placed her phone beside her slowly. The apartment was quiet again except for rain against the windows. At the desk, Harem turned another page in her document. Too carefully. Too precisely. Kenyul noticed immediately. You don't like Minji? I didn't say that. You didn't have to. A pause. She talks a lot. That's true. Silence settled briefly again. Then, you spend a lot of time with her. The words sounded casual. Controlled. Too controlled. Kenyul turned slightly toward her. Are you jealous? Everything stilled. Harem looked up slowly. Expression unreadable. No. Too quick. Again. Hanyul watched her for a second longer, then smiled faintly into the darkness. Right. And somehow, that tiny smile irritated Haram even more, because it felt like Manuel could already see through her. Even when Haram couldn't fully see through herself yet, the rain softened outside gradually. Neither of them moved. Haram remained at the desk. Kenyul stayed curled beneath the blankets. But the room no longer felt divided, just quiet, shared. Hanyul's voice came softly through the dim room. Your family thinks this is real. A pause. Then Haram answered quietly.
I know.
Silence stretched again. Heavy this time. Not uncomfortable, just honest. Because for the first time, neither of them sounded completely certain it wasn't. If you want to know what happens next, hit the like button. And don't forget to subscribe and support.